Okay, we'll go ahead and start.
Hello, my name is Brittany Branch Smith, and I am hosting today's meeting. It's great to see you all today. We have two ASL sign language interpreters with us, Deja Hightower and Cheryl Santana. I have been fully immersed in the secret of treasure hunt for a year, and I'm super excited to see you all today. We have three presenters here today for today's meeting. Keith
Hofford.
Boogerville, Harris, and myself. Each one of us will give about a 20-minute presentation on theories and experience. And we have some refreshments and drinks over here. I just want to let you know we will have to leave this room around before 12:55. So just help us pick up a little bit before we head out, so we can make sure we vacate the room on time. After the presentation, we'll have about a 10-minute break. But beforehand, we'll discuss maybe permissions on digging. So we would like to go ahead and start today's meeting.
I guess that's me.
Yes, sir.
So as she said, my name is Keith Hofford. I don't need the microphone. It's been a while since I've given a presentation. I used to have presentations given to me. I've since retired. So let's let you know a little bit about my background. I've been here in town for about 35 years. I was a senior manager with Northrop Grumman Aerospace up north of town for that time. Just have recently retired. So when I first started this was about 3 years ago, and I got into it. I was looking online and trying to figure it out. And I went over to the old senator. Everybody knows that one. I ended up on Water Street after the FOI, and I just said, "What kind of happy horse shit is this?" And I kind of threw it in the corner and forgot about it. Well, and about 5 months ago, I picked it up and started again. And once I started seeing things, I couldn't stop seeing things. So without further ado, I'm gonna get started. Oh, my buddy Brian was supposed to be here too today, but he couldn't. And everybody knows me as Al Green. I'm not Al Green, that's my wife, Audrey Lee Green. So I told her she was my spouse, and she thought, oh, I wanna go ahead and meet him when he comes too, so. All right. Everybody got your seatbelts on? So, to start off, I wanted to give a little input about Byron and JJ. I saw them both as masters in respective arts. I really think they do a tremendous job. Has anybody actually read the book? I went through most of the book. I didn't read the whole thing. I found it kind of humorous in the end when they talk about immigrations and all that. I understand everything here is open to interpretations. You will not agree with everything I show you, but it all works out in the end. It's that interpretation, if you will. Deliberately unclear, vague, and cryptic. It is designed to mislead. They try to clarify using different approaches, and I see that a lot, and I'm going to show you those different approaches. Very repetitive. So in our approaches, in our assumptions, are keep with the theme of immigrations. Now early in the book, one of the things I saw is he says emigrations, E-M, not I-M. Emigrations is moving from here to there. Immigrations is moving from there to here. And I don't know why he said that, but I thought that was kind of strange. So we defined the writings with both the dictionary and encyclopedia. Back in '81, they didn't have the internet, as you well know. The dictionary and encyclopedia was basically what he had. So I tried to stay within those confines. Research, research, research. You guys all know that's true. Words have more than one meaning. Big. Watch the brushstrokes. JJ lets a lot of stuff out there by using different brushstrokes. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the painting. Don't go down the same road as others. Everybody seems to be stuck on the Fountain of Youth. I just don't see it. There's nothing in there that says the Fountain of Youth. To me, I know it does for a lot of other people. I've actually helped other people out with the Fountain of Youth. Use common sense, huge. And KISS, everybody knows the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Yep, there you go. Okay, let's get started. As I said, and I understand, and I'll try to acknowledge these things as we go, that they're open to interpretations. So we're gonna start off with the first chapter, written in water, and Seloy. Everybody knows the Seloy. I agree with everything there as far as it's spelling out Seloy. So we're gonna start out with those three things first. So the first chapter, Pedro Menendez sails to Florida. This is not Ponce de Leon. Ponce de Leon didn't even go to the Fountain of Youth. That's in the 1981 understandings of the 1981 understanding of what he did. Ponce de Leon either landed in Melbourne or he landed just south of Ponte Vedra. Well, they always they got a Pedro Menendez Day down there.
And then it's all
Yeah.
There's no factual evidence that he ever landed at St. Augustine.
No, and he was never really looking for the Fountain of Youth on his first trip, at least. There's some kind of story in the background that says that somebody called him some names and he was impotent, and that's why he was looking for the Fountain of Youth. But the Fountain of Youth Park actually started this whole thing up. They just kept perpetuating the whole thing, if you will, about the Fountain of Youth. This started way back in the 20s. So it's a marketing ploy, in my opinion. John Fraser is a wonderful person. If you ever meet him, he goes overboard to help you out. We had a good conversation. It was only supposed to last for about 35, 40 minutes. It lasted an hour and a half. It was really good. Great guy to talk to. So back to Pedro. He settled to name this town after St. Augustine de Hippo on the day of the feast, not Ponce de Leon. I agree that that's the west coast of Florida. Everybody agrees that's the west coast of Florida. Anybody not agree with that? Okay. I do ask questions. So who is this in the cloud?
Don Quixote.
Don Quixote.
It's a Frenchman.
The horse rider?
No. Let's look at this a little closer. That guy in the cloud right there. Anybody?
Maria.
Other than Don Quixote?
Maria.
No. Okay, it's easier if you see it in this sense here. Anybody? Okay. It's St. Augustine. The picture on the left, I'm sorry, is the best one I could find that actually matched the outline of the staff with the head on the staff. That was a popular gift for the churchgoers back in the 80s. You can find that in most of the trinket shops around town. There were different iterations of that headpiece, as you can see. And this is all the way from 300 BC, 343 BC, I think it was. So there's hundreds of these iterations, but that was the best one that matched that up. That's St. Augustine.
It has to be after BC because Christ came. He came.
300 AD, I'm sorry, 300 AD, I'm sorry, wrong side.
Right.
I'm gonna say something about BC down the line about another thing, so. But that is AD, correct. So if that's St. Augustine, who is that? It can only be one person. Pedro Menendez. Pedro Menendez named St. Augustine after St. Augustine. That's why he's looking up to the east. You notice that he always had these frilly things around his neck. Every time you see him in any picture or any statue, it was a frilly thing. And I kind of liken the design of the frilly thing right here around his neck. So the first chapter, written in water. So it's reasonable or plausible to think that Byron knew of the writings of John Keats. You guys know John Keats? John Keats was a poet back in the 17th century, 18th century, sorry, early 18th century. He died when he was about 25, and on his deathbed he said, my name writ in water or here lies one whose name was writ in water, meaning he thought that he would be lost to the ages, that nobody would remember him. I don't know if anybody's ever seen any of his poetry. I'm not a big poet fan. I did read a few of them, and I think that's kind of where Byron got some of his motivation from. But if you write something in water, if I was to go out and write, up with a squirt bottle on the sidewalk, write my name, what would happen to it? It'd dry up and it'd go away, wouldn't it? That's why he's saying, written in water, leave it be. My opinion, okay? Oh, I wanted to take notice, Keats died in 1821. So let's go on. Second chapter, I call it the second chapter. When I read a book, if I make it past the first few pages, I'll actually, and then it grips me, and then I'll actually say, well, you know, I'll go ahead and read the second chapter, third, fourth, and I'll go on. I never stop at just the first chapter, and that's why I go on to the second chapter, and that's why I call this the second chapter, is the fort. So the building of the fort was started in 1672, completed in 1696. Was made of coquina, shell and limestone, at an estimated cost of, this is today's cost, $1 billion in silver. It was built on the sweat, the salt of hundreds. Okay, so for me, this was the starting point. I think you have to start here. You have to understand what that picture is. And that's this picture here, down here. If you look at that, you'll see this item right up in there. This is the bayfront at the fort looking across. Obviously the tall grass, you can't take a picture just to the north of there, which would actually be better. You can't do that because now there's trees growing up there. There's pepper trees. You can actually see something similar to this at the Fountain of Youth. If you go on the tower in the backyard across the bay, you can actually see some of this, but it's so far off in the distance you can't make anything out. So that is the lighthouse. If you look closely, you can see the spirals on it with the lighthouse there.
That's what you, I was thinking that too before you even highlighted that. I was like, why aren't that little piece sticking up as the lighthouse?
So, and then, like I said, you can't see this at the cross, and obviously if you're at the lighthouse, you don't see it at the lighthouse. So if you turn, if I'm looking at the bay, if I turn about 35 to 40 degrees to the right, and this is where it starts getting fun, I see that right there. That's the northeast lookout tower of the fort.
It's actually not a lookout tower, it's a bell tower.
See, they say that, but I don't think there was ever a bell. I've seen that though written. That's a lookout tower. It's the tallest elevation in the fort, and it had 4 windows all the way around. They used to have a second story in there. They've since taken that out as, you know, not a very good thing with a lot of kids running around there.
Civil War pictures of people up on a platform,
Yes,
kind of halfway up.
yes. So, if you look,
Agreed.
that's your edge of the fort, the bastion, and the top. Now remember, in the other paintings, he either adds things in or leaves things out. Remember when I say this too, he's very repetitive, very repetitive. So now let's look at this piece right there. Everybody thinks it's an owl. No, it's not. It's just another view of that. Again, repetitive, repetitive, repetitive. He's trying to make sure that you understand what you're looking at. So he even has it in the clouds to the left of the actual drawing. And right there you can see. I think what he's trying to tell you is to look inside the window, because if you do that, you'll see this right here. The bird and the bricks. So the brick view, if you look in through the second window, and I got this online, I didn't fly a drone over the fort because that's illegal as well. If you look across, you'll see a brick pattern, which is shown as the brick pattern there. Falcon, hawk, eagle. What do you guys think?
Falcon.
Huh?
It's a peregrine.
Okay, peregrine falcon,
Falcon.
falcon. It's a pigeon.
Pigeon.
They got a pigeon problem at the fort. Gordy Wilson, when I went to talk to him, He was the superintendent of the fort right there. He agreed, man, the pigeons are a pain in the ass. If you look at the top of this lookout tower, and I didn't take notice of the other ones, the guard posts, but it's always got weeds on it. They poop all over the place.
And the pigeon's important, because if you look at early immigration to America, the native pigeons were wiped out. The pigeons you see today were imported. That's what people were eating, pigeons left and right. And on one of my podcasts, I talked about in the Boston one, that's why that's a pigeon. That's part. This is all stuff that Byron intended you to research.
Yes.
One little thing, that bird, and I was like, what kind of bird? And my uncle looked at that and goes, that's a pigeon.
That's a pigeon. So you can even see in the window itself, they got those little spiky things to keep the pigeons out of there.
Could I add something else real quick?
Absolutely.
A lot of people miss this. So John Palencar, since we're talking about him, when he was at the Cleveland meetup, it's on the video, but the people there didn't say, John said, when you think you're there, he goes, look around.
Yeah.
And everybody there totally, if I was there, I'd have been like, hey. But what you're talking about right now is exactly what John Palencar was talking about.
Yes.
When you get there, Palencar said, when you get there, look around. And nobody reacted to it, and they went immediately on to something else. It's like, Palencar right there, he gave you a clue.
Yeah.
That was a clue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff you're seeing, and a lot of that's in the verses, where it says, look, it says here, it talks about stuff you've already passed, you've already seen, like in Houston. Palencar's added that to the paintings.
Yeah.
So he's telling you to look around and see if you see anything.
And that's how I got started. After looking across the bayfront, it's like I said, if you turn that 35 to 40 degrees to the right, then you see those things. And then once you see them, you can't stop seeing
These
them.
are all visiting spots that Byron intended you.
Yes.
When that girl sent him the email years ago and said, the zoo in Houston? He goes, no, but that would be a great place to visit. Byron was telling her, go to the zoo.
Yeah.
You're gonna see something.
Yeah.
It's probably in the painting or the verse.
Yeah.
Or in the book. Like if you walk into the Fountain Youth, what's the few things you see there that are in that painting?
Some water maybe.
The conquistador guy, the helmet.
Yeah, the conquistador guy at the top.
It's like the sign out front you see.
Yeah.
You go,
And there's
first
actually a
chapter.
statue in there by the food court that's got
Exactly.
that dude in there.
By the
And
barbecue
he
joint.
put that there because you were meant to drive to the entrance and go, if you were familiar with the verse, hey, it says the first chapter right there.
Yes.
But part of the illusion is once you get in there and look around, you go like you said, this other stuff's all missing, so you're on the next journey to the next spot.
Right. So the back to the pigeons, they are so cheeky. Even when the cannon blows off, they don't move. They sit there.
They're used to it.
I want you to take note of the plume from the cannon, okay? Because that's going to come up in a little bit. So let's talk about this bit right here. I know this really baffled me for about a week. If you take that and you turn it about 110 degrees over to the left, counterclockwise, you see this right here. So I saw this when I first started looking at this. I started at the bottom of the fort looking to the north to the lookout tower again. It just didn't match up. But then when I started looking at the top of the bastion at the southeast side, I could see it. Now you don't see the cannon wheels, but as I said, remember that plume? I believe, and this is one of those open for interpretation things, I believe this is represented by that right there. That's my thoughts, may not be your thoughts. I get it.
This is where I can't wait to see John Palencar explain all this one day. Like in Boston, he goes, I spelled out Boston. It's like, how are you supposed to know a bubble is an O?
He does
It's
this
like,
a couple.
you're doing it a little too good.
Yeah, he does this a couple of times, uses like the negative paintings, and you got to try to figure it as the proper way. even with, this part of the bastion right there, the parapet, if you will, it's actually squared off right behind the guy. Again, there are other things that are in this painting that influence these angles too. We gotta remember that,
horse.
because we're gonna come back to this as
These
well.
have to be flipped and looked at from
Yeah, yeah.
Totally.
direction.
Yeah.
So, going on. Okay, so he says, well, this is the lookout tower, this is the lookout tower, this is the lookout tower, this is the lookout tower. What is he trying to say about that? I struggled with that too for a little bit. He's trying to say it's the tallest point in the fort. So he's actually saying, look here, look here, look here. This is what I want you to see. Why does he say that? So when you look at this right here, I saw a couple of different things in this. First, I saw an X. Oh, we got new people.
Welcome.
Hey, folks.
We're in the library.
So when I first started seeing this, I saw the X. And I'm going, okay, X marks the spot. Look for the X marks the spot. But I also saw a cross. And I thought, well, what's the cross all about? What's he trying to say there? After the research, I came up with this. So we'll talk about the early European rum line network. It's a hexadecagon, is the actual real name for this thing. What the cartographers did is they overlaid this in the waters that they knew. Now remember, at this time, they knew the world was round. They didn't know how big it was or what were in certain sections of it. So they used the wind until 1569, when they came up with the Mercator system. Now we still use a rum line network, but now it's to degrees and minutes, latitudes and longitudes, because we know what's on the other side of the water now. We can easily predict where it's at. With that said, I want you to pay particular attention to the middle of this thing, that right there. You'll see that it doesn't say north, south, east, and west. It's got the fleur-de-lis and an M on it for the south, the fleur-de-lis for the north. The fleur-de-lis was for nobility, for the kings. That was reserved. That's what they wanted to say here. But look at what it says to the east. It's got a cross. Why the cross? Yes.
Should have said in the Mediterranean,
There's
east meant where Christ was crucified.
Christianity. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So now you know what the cross is for that I've shown you before. All right, so I thought about a windrose. In how he says, it says near men with windrose. He doesn't say with a windrose. He doesn't say on a windrose, which I would expected him to say. You know, leaves it to a lot of interpretation. I thought it as a metaphor for using the wind to travel for growth or change, using the wind for direction, rising above adversity and hardship. This was one of the things that I thought. It all takes you to the same place. So the windrose take two. Yes, sir.
Would you mind if I made a comment about that last slide?
Absolutely.
Can you put it back?
Yes.
So we all agree that Saloy is an acrostic, right?
Is it what?
Is an acrostic.
Correct.
Okay.
Right? If you take the first character of every line in the verse with a little bit of creativity, it says town, we're missing the O, TWN is town, with W, bays, B-A-A-Y-S, and then Saloy, town with bays, Saloy. So he's talking about two bays, Matanzas Bay and the Bay of Hospital Creek, which is right next to the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah.
The Mission. Okay?
Yeah.
So and by the way, there's way more acrostic in that information.
Okay.
But that's not what I want to talk about. It says you can still hear the honking.
Yes.
What's honking? He actually answers it right there in a reverse acrostic. The G in honking, go up to tree, the E there, E-S-E. You can still hear the honking geese. And we know from John Fraser that his father penned geese on the west side of the planetarium, And if you draw, I'm not asking you to do this, but if you draw a line from the G to the E to the E to the S to the E, it actually is like a little tiny floor plan of the edge of the western side of the planetarium.
That's what John said too.
And the E,
Yeah.
the E is exactly where the traverse board is on the other side of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So with windrows, he's referring to the traverse board.
Okay.
And near men, exactly opposite the traverse board, is the plaque that says "Life on a Spanish Galleon," and about 2/3 of the way down, it says it's the story of the grommets. And the grommet's job was to man the 30-minute sand clock, and when that sand would run out, he'd flip it around to restart it and ring the bell. And when he rang the bell, the ship's navigator would record the bearing and speed of the ship at that moment the bell rang. And he did that 8 times during his 4-hour watch, and that's how they dead reckoned their way across the ocean. All that is in the planetarium's lobby,
Mhm.
all right next to each other.
Yeah.
So, and that presentation's been there since the mid-70s.
There's no doubt in my mind that he got a lot of inspiration out of there.
Thank you for letting me say that.
No, I agree. Again, there's a lot of interpretation there. So, okay, so windrows, take 2. Takes 5 things to make up a windrose. The first one's wind direction, as shown by the arrow. Second one, wind speed. Anybody know what a windsock is at the airport, the airfield? It's usually like a 15-knot sock. When it's standing out straight, 15 plus. These sails, or these banners, you would not necessarily see a soldier carrying them. These would be at the top of ships. These would be something to give them the direction of the winds and how fast the winds were actually blowing, on top of being a nobility marker too of who was on the ship. So those 2 things make up windrows and cardinal direction. We already talked about the cross. He's saying east. A way to tell time, see where the sun is versus the shadows. A lot of people have a lot of things you can see. But from the sun and on the horse with the shadows, you can see the sun's probably right there. You can kind of guesstimate between 9 and 11 o'clock in the morning. Last thing is you got to have a way to plot it. The fork is the way to plot. Today we use, they can be circles, but you got to have the stars within the circles. You have those intercardinal lines that you can use. You got the main ones, north, south, east, west. 4 is the very minimum. You can go all the way up to 128 as far as the windrows. So that's,
32.
huh?
Typically 32.
Typically 32, but you can go up very high. It all depends on where those intercardinal lines
Our
are.
windroses is in 32.
So, but you can't do it with 4. Okay, keeping up. So the fort was built to a geographical north, not magnetic. You can see there is some deviation. I left that on there so you can see. There is some deviation to the magnetic. The poles have moved. North Pole has moved between now and 1565. I think it was 1,272 miles, something like that. But it's going the opposite way. It doesn't really affect us a whole hell of a lot here. Okay, this is where it starts getting real interesting. Iceberg or an island with a palm tree. Let's take a look at that right there. Everybody sees this, is seeing it, and try to figure out what it is. So, if he's saying east, 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 everything is east, this is east, what's in the west?
Your star is northeast.
But it's in the east.
On the east side of the fort.
Yes,
Got it.
it's looking at the east. He says east, 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 east. What's in the west? The North City Gate Island.
in downtown.
Yeah. So, and you can I pinned this up so you can see it. Better one is this one right
Very,
here.
very nice. That's a very, I've never seen that one before. That's
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Orange Street, San Marco goes around the circle to Castillo Drive, and you got St. George Street with the city gates wide open there. So if this is the city gates, and this is Orange Street, and that goes around from San Marco to Castillo, back on this Orange Street, why is St. George Street smushed? That area right there. That's where I started playing with the whole thing. It's smushed. So I was looking at this, and you can probably drive a Hummer through the city gates. That's about how wide it is. But you could probably put 3 or 4 Hummers side by side on St. George Street, you know? You could drive them down there to pedestrians, tourists. So what I did is I started taking things out the middle. But it wasn't enough. I took out a little bit more. Oh, I started seeing something there. So remember the staff line from St. Augustine that I showed you? Let's put that back in there, and let's cut the bottom of that iceberg off. And this is rotated 90 degrees. Sorry, I couldn't clear it up any more than that. Okay, so that kind of looks familiar. What happens if we do that right there? Okay, and oh, by the way, it's made out of palm trees. Now, this is where it starts getting a little tricky because Byron was a Yankee. He didn't know the difference between a sable palm and a coconut palm, or a royal palm, if you will. But nevertheless, it's made out of palm trees. So, let's talk about green. Talk about green for a minute. Excuse me just for a second here. So, green is in the spectrum between blue and yellow. But green means other things too. I can be green with envy. I can have a green thumb. I went out drinking last night and today, and I'm just green around the gills. Was anybody in the military? Thank you for your services. You know what an FNG is. Literally, if you've seen any Vietnam movie, they talk about FNGs. Friggin' new guys, I'll say that nicely. They're greenhorns. And I can go green. None of them are the color green. Talk about modern picket fences. Everybody wants to live in that house on the corner with a white picket fence, and they get Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer out there to whitewash the damn thing once a year. And I actually put the old Senator. This is actually a picket fence as well. These are military pickets. You can see the different designs through the years, fortifications. So let's go through these definitions again. Green, a color in a spectrum between yellow and blue. I'm going to take that out of there. I don't like that. Of cement or mortar, freshly set and not completely hardened, okay? Of a casting as it comes from the mold, immature in age. A picket is to enclose fence or fortify with pickets. If anybody was in the Army, they know you rode or you worked your guard post. It was a picket, to guard with picket. Post is a picket, a detached body of soldiers serving to guard an army from surprise. A detachment kept ready in camp for such duty, a sentry. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a green picket fence. The Kubo line. Did anybody watch the 1964 video on how the Kubo line was made?
No, sir.
You should look at that. It's very interesting. Because what they did is they took palm trees and they wrapped them with a silicone, let them set, they cut them, and then they poured concrete in them with coloring to make them look like palms. They're all concrete. So at one time, one date or another, you can say that these were green. If you look at them to the whole, like say the fort's what, 350 years old? 350, something like that. These are only 54 years old. So yeah, you can still say they're green too. They're immature as far as the age of the fort goes. Maybe not so much anymore. I want you to take notice of the two people standing on top. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the biggest picket fence in St. Augustine. dare I say, Northeast Florida. I don't know because I don't know all the other forts that are here. Two people standing on top of the Kubo line. Just take note of that. So now, we're gonna look at the hand with the two fingers being held up. Does everybody see that? Because I know there's doubters. There's doubters out here that say, I don't believe it's the Kubo line, not a bit. So, two fingers here, holding up two fingers, the hand holding up two fingers. Hold on. I'll show you that right there, maybe help you out a little bit. Let's go on to the next page. Two fingers holding up. And it looks like numbers at the top of those fingers. Anybody want to guess what those numbers are?
3 and 2.
Huh?
3 and 2.
1842 is what I see.
Close.
Let's flip it upside down, it's 16 something.
What year did John Keats die?
Yeah, you had 1821, wasn't it?
1821. Okay, two fingers. Two things happened in 1821. The first thing was Spain was having a big problem. They could not afford this anymore. They just went through the Napoleonic Wars. The U.S. was fighting in the Florida, it wasn't even Florida, Spanish-owned Florida at the time. They were fighting the Seminoles, the Seminole War, the first Seminole War. It ended up in like 1818 or 1819, something like that. Then they started looking at, Spain wanted to ditch it, wanted to ditch Florida because they just couldn't afford it. They looked into, well, they were working on, it's called the Adams-Onis Treaty, which was started in 1819. They went through a bunch of ratifications, and finally in 1821, they went ahead, Spain ceded Florida to the United States. That's the first big thing that impacted St. Augustine. So, let's go on. So the second thing was, in 1821, the final edition of the Kubo line was completed just prior to the transfer. There's a fun fact about this, and we're going to talk about that next. They did that because they thought that there was going to be further conflicts either with the United States, because people were coming out of the southern United States and trying to just start a new life in Florida. A lot of people liked it back then. So, fun fact about this, so in 1819 there was 200 troops at the fort when the Adams-Onis Treaty was being prepared. At the end, or at 1821, when they left the fort, there was 3 Spanish soldiers there. Does everybody see the 3 Spanish soldiers? You can actually see the face of that guy right there. Doesn't have anything to do with the actual, just history at this point. So, okay, so you still don't believe me as far as Kubo line. Let's take a look at this little bit right here. Does everybody see my little friend there? My little friend right there. See him standing?
I do, yes, I recall this conversation, yes, sir.
So, you know what he's standing on? You can see all the striations going up and down. There, it looks like, it's almost like a water going sideways. I'll give it a little.
I see 2 people.
There should be 2 people.
And you can actually.
See a person behind him facing the other way with his arms down on his side.
Yeah, you can actually say that. See what they're standing on now? The Kubo line.
This is all stuff that can go back to Palancar talking about the print of the painting in the book.
Yep.
And all the stuff that you're not going to see.
Yes.
I wish somebody would ask him, like the scanned versions. Are we able to see that stuff you were talking about now?
Yeah.
And see if he'd just say yes.
George asked that question. He ain't responded yes, but he did show his dislike of the quality.
Yeah, if you look at the original painting, it's real difficult. I had to go through the reconstructed images several times. Again, that's why I said open to interpretation. But at the same term, he says things repetitively. He wants to make sure you're looking at them. So it's the back side of Kubo line. So let's look at this right here. This is a good one. So does Everybody sees the stairs here, right?
Yeah.
They're not stairs. If you see the stairs, look at the tree just above it. You see the tree?
You're gonna have to use a pointer or something, sir.
Now, I'll do this. That's the tree. Okay? With the bent branch, you can see he does actually say that. So there is a box at the base of that big tree. Don't see that? It looks like it says stairs still. Let me help you out a little bit. So that is, if you were to cut the hole in half, a cross section the hole, you would see the box in the hole. Now I looked at the other paintings that there were. I didn't see this in any of the other ones, and I thought about it. I'm going, a box. Well, the box holds the cast that holds the key. Doesn't make any sense. Why would you put that on there? What's another word for a box that has 6 equal sides?
Cube.
Yes, it's a cube. Very good. So it's a cube. What's the Spanish word for cube? Cubo.
Kubo.
Just food for thought. So, looking in the palm tree, now somebody actually just put this online too. I noticed this on the George Ward secret. There's writing in there. If you blow it up, you can kind of see, and this is one of those interpretational things. You can kind of see a U, a B, you probably see it better out there, a B, an O, and then it goes into an L, and I think there's an I there. I can only make it out as a Kubo line. That's mine. I tried highlighting it a couple of times, but again, it's open to interpretation. So he's saying it again to me, he's saying it again, and this is negative reversed. You'd have to imagine how he does that. He writes it down, Kubo line, but then he inverts the whole thing. That's the way I saw it. We're going to come back to the Kubo line in just a minute. So, big ass tree with a bent branch. And it is a big tree. It's very nice to sit underneath it. I visited a couple of times. I popped my happy ass down there and sat in the cool shade and watched tourists frolicking. So, let's look at this part right here, right now. If you take that and you rotate it 90 degrees, you see that right there. Everybody see the root bundle? The tree, a root, and not a root. I call it the root bundle too. So if you look at the base of that tree, and a couple of things I want you to notice here is look at those 2 areas right there. You can see this and this. You have this and this. There was actually another tree over there. And we're really very lucky this tree has survived the hurricanes. But that, I believe, is what he's talking about. So, what else do you see in this picture?
The city of St. Augustine.
Yeah. How about a palm tree in the background?
Over there.
See the palm tree in the background? So, let's go back to the staff line. So we know that this is the palm tree in the background. Let's put the staff line back in it. Right there. What does that mean? How about the Kubo line again in the background? So the bird, what kind of bird is this one?
Raven Road.
Raven crow, that's what he's trying to say. I think what he's trying to say is this is where a bird would have sat had the branch been there still. That's the knot that produced. Now this knot has grown up quite a bit. Now everything's grown 44 years, so you got to give it a little bit there. But there was some writing here. Somebody went in there and they carved their initials here. And if you looked right here, I didn't take the right angle or I didn't do something right. It kind of looks like initials are right there. Just saying.
It'd be funny if that said Byron Price was here.
Yeah, that's why I said JJ Telestar. So X marks the spot. Remember in the beginning we talked about the X on the top, and he says look for the X marks the spot. Remember the asters at the bottom. If you look at this highlighted place right here, X marks the spot. I won't tell you I've been over there probing or anything because it's illegal, but
Especially there.
let's go on.
And last year, somebody got arrested there.
Oh yeah. So it's a
With the
good
shovel,
point,
the
too.
metal detector and everything in broad daylight.
Yeah, so that's a good point because it's a $10,000 fine and it's a year in jail. They don't play around. Now I thought, well, the government's shut down right now, you know. No, my happy ass is too old to go over there and get caught. I don't think I'd do so good in prison. You know, they'd probably see my old butt in there and well, nevertheless. So it would probably cost you almost 10 grand for a lawyer, 10 grand in fines. You might get off with 90 days in jail, but they're not playing around over there.
And you probably be
It's
trespassing from
extreme.
every federal property on the planet.
It's extremely hard to probe anywhere around those big trees.
Yeah, well,
I'm telling you right now.
I went through this whole thing with Gordy Wilson, and he bobbed his head up and down, and he says, yeah, I agree. He says,
There's no way you're gonna be able to dig there.
he says it takes an archaeologist. Anytime that they want to dig on the property, it takes an archaeologist. And this is frivolous. They're not going to do it for this. So he says if it's in the ground there, that's where it's gonna stay. I counted no less than 14 cameras on the grounds out there, and there is at least one aimed right at this area now, and it could be because I talked to Gordy Wilson too.
Even
So,
the line of trees going down the whole other side there, you can't even go
No.
in there either. It's too hard.
no, and I tried to think, well, this isn't the Ford grounds, this might be just close enough where I could say the city still owns that, but it's off. The tree is, there's gotta be about 1,000 cars that pass every hour right there, and it's very open. You can't hide in any way. There's just nothing there. There's no cover at all. So the Bridge of Lines, I happened to see this down there, and I went back to the honking. You know, John Fraser actually said, way back when the geese got out, and they were all over the place. Somebody let them out, and they had to herd them all back in. That's what he thought it was, the geese or the ducks or whatever is back in there. The Bridge of Lions, I believe, is the honking. If you see this, and one of the things I noticed when I first started doing this was this right here. Understandably, the bridge was rebuilt, but back in the day, they used to have these banners that they would say, oh, it's the gay pride or whatever, and it was the season of the witch or whatever they had. They had those banners. They don't do that anymore. They only have the flags. But this is how they used to display. You can see the footer of the bridge, and there's another one. I didn't go overboard to try to overshow this, but if you look, there's actually a shadow under this painting here that shows the shadow of the bridge too. So I saw this as well. I didn't highlight this at all. This area right here, if you look at this very closely, you can see something. Again, you can't see this on the original painting. That's why I didn't know how far the reconstructed image went, but I believe that's the center span of the bridge. Back to the honking. Yes?
Why aren't you using the image that was printed in the first edition?
I did not have that. I didn't.
Because you're using George's painting, and it's missing so many details.
Yes.
So many colors are different.
And that's why I thought that the reconstructed, where the reconstructed
I'll
image
give you
was
mine.
taken. Okay. So, stars move by day. This is the old 1940s location of the flagpole. You can notice the flag is actually moving from the west to the east. Teardrop shaped moon sapphires. Anybody ever heard of the moon sapphire? I hadn't either. And then I just started looking into the moon. It's actually called a pear-shaped sapphire, but they actually do look like teardrops.
You know what the star is called in a sapphire?
Star sapphire.
Do you know what the star is called?
No.
An asterism.
What's it?
Asterism. Because of
What's it called?
the month.
An asterism.
Asterism.
Because of the month.
It's just called an asterism.
But, well,
I
I
can
say that
explain
because the
that in
ash,
my presentation of why it's called an asterism, I have that detail.
okay, because I saw it as the flowers were asters, and that's why I say maybe it was the asterism, I didn't know that.
That's the connection.
So there's really no such thing as a moon sapphire, it's just and they say it right here, it's a poetic description of the sapphire. Years past, rain falls, a big rain problem with the fort. Actually, that one section is falling down. As it rains, they've since mitigated a lot of problems. The sand was being washed out. You can see the old rain station, it's no longer there. Now it looks like a trash can sitting in the corner. That's the far northeast corner of the fort grounds. And that was a rain detector, rainwater detector. So the first chapter, written in water, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, you guys know. Let's go on. Everybody see the fish? Everybody saw the fish? That fish right
Now,
there.
what's it say inside the fish?
I don't know, I just saw the fish. And what about the hand holding the keys? Everybody see the hand holding the key? That's the hand. You can see the thumbnail, the digits going across the top, and the key on the inside. That's an old skeleton key. That's kind of, and I'm really curious to see the key that's in the cask, how that actually shapes with this. However, there is another hand there yet, so. This hand right here, you can see this is the thumb, here is the key, index finger, and pinky's way back there.
There's a perfect example of why using the wrong painting is a bad idea, because you're missing an enormous story inside of your red one.
Probably. But you can see the fingernails on the fingers too, and that's why I say, watch the brush strokes. Here's a brush stroke, you can see the fingernail there, watch the brush.
See, there's a key to this painting, and it's the water. If you look in that
Yes,
image right there, and look at the trickling water.
yeah, and I struggle
And
with
that is
too.
totally intentional. Water is a big, big clue.
Yeah, if you look at the iceberg, there's actually water going down, and I can explain that too. That's all I got, folks. I hope that was good. So, for me,